The Techno Blades was Ninjago's first collectible weapon that wasn't an elemental weapon, and it does have the very unique trophy of being as such. It also does serve a very unique and pivotal aspect from the season that it does come from, so it definitely does have a very important place within the history books. But besides having all of those medals, it is really shocking when you actually take a step back and look at the Technoblades on an overall scale, because when you actually consider the specific details of those weapons, you realize that they were just straight up wasted when it does come to Rebooted, because what everything it had set up was for, it just eventually gets fizzled away and gets turned into absolutely nothing. And that is going to be what we discuss today. We are going to look through what the Technoblades actually accomplished, and then take a look at what they could have done throughout Rebooted, and just go through how they could have actually been utilized and became something a lot more, because they had the potential to be some of the best weapons we've ever seen. But I think as it stands, they are most definitely one of the most wasted aspects of the earlier years of Ninjago, and I really want to know what you guys think of it, because I don't see this discussed a lot. So let me not waste any more of your time, and let's talk about the Technoblades, Ninjago's most wasted weapons. But before we do get into the specifics, let's actually go over what the Technoblades are, just in case people have forgotten or if you are just simply unaware. The Technoblades are weapons for the ninja that are obtained at Borg Tower. They can hack into systems which allow them to turn ordinary machinery into ninja vehicles, also allowing them to do other things. But one of the main purposes that it did serve was actually to purge the digital overlord of Borg systems so that the Dark Lord would no longer be able to return once more. They were set up with this feeling of they had great importance, which they did by all accounts, but the ninja talk about them as if they are weapons that completely changed the tide on what was actually going to happen beyond the point of its initial debut. Again, more on that in a minute. But as the season went on, you realize that just less and less we actually got to know about them, and the less they even used them, to the point where they didn't even make it through the entirety of the 8 episodes. The first instance where we actually get to see the Technoblades being used is within the first episode, The Surge. We get to see the ninja discover what the weapons are actually used for, and we get to see them take over their own vehicles respectively to be able to take on the Nindroid army. We get to see Zane take over a helicopter, we get to see Jay take over a rover, Cole take over a mech, and Kai take over a jet. This was an amazing way to demonstrate that they are able to turn these machines over to their own side and be able to utilize them. There was seemingly limitless potential with this as well, because it seems to be that it's just a weapon that is able to do it completely. This moved through to the episode The Art of the Silent Fist, where we get to see the Technoblades being used for more than just that singular purpose. We get to see how Zane is able to use the Technoblade to be able to purge the Overlord's control over Pixel, restoring her free will and allowing her to be able to operate without any sort of further influence. It goes even further than that. We even get to see them try to use it in an offensive purpose. We get to see them try to attack Nindroids with the weapons, presumably to also take them over, but they eventually failed. And then lastly within that episode, we get to see the ninja try to use the Technoblades to be able to turn off the power and hack the storm farms to be able to black out the city. These are all fairly interesting concepts and definitely did work, but unlike the first episode, these do all have small flaws. The Pixel one on its own is fine, but it does open up the rabbit hole of why didn't the ninja try to use that more and more. Like I said, it seems to be in a later fight they did attempt to do that, but it seems to be that throughout the season they just forget this idea that they can actually utilize the Technoblades to be able to turn the Nindroid army against the Overlord. It just seems to be something that they initially do but completely forget about, which is just a massive shame. And the Storm Farms example, Kai attempts to actually hit the glass to be able to hack into the systems, but of course he does not get through. Why doesn't he just attack the consoles that they then proceed to use to turn off the power? It is extremely strange and never really made sense to me even at the time. Honestly, it definitely does just mean that they wanted a fight scene between the ninja and the Nindroids, but it really does just come across strange. If they've opened up this concept of the ninja just trying to use the Technoblades for anything, why is it that they immediately give up under the first idea? Why is it that they don't think any further beyond that initial one? It genuinely is beyond me. And then the last main instance where the Technoblades are actually used are in the episode Enter the Digiverse. This is actually where the main use of the weapons are actually used, to purge the Overlord from the digital space. They are utilized there, and that is the last time where we then actually get to see the Technoblades at all throughout the course of the season. That is it. Literally it. And honestly, when you think of it in that context, you realize that they really weren't used for all that much. I listed off 5 instances of these weapons being used, and that's it. It really does just come across as strange. Now you may be hearing this and thinking to yourself, well Weavy, they served their purpose by all accounts, and yes they did, but these weapons still had an extremely practical application to near enough everything that was involved within this season. Why is it that the Technoblades could not be used beyond this point? The Technoblades were used in a digital space with the ninja using it. The Technoblades were just on the back of the seat when the ninja were in the Digiverse. So why is it that the weapons just vanish after this? There's never been an official confirmation on what happened to these weapons after this episode. They are presumably still intact. The ninja just simply decide to not use them. It just feels inherently and definitionally wasted. Why is it that the ninja wouldn't utilize weapons that can override technology against an army that is dependent on technology? It makes no sense, and definitely did just feel like they wanted to get the weapons out of the way in favor of elemental power. Of course, that's understandable, but just really off-putting. But even before that, even before the Digiverse era actually happened, you realize that there were so many instances where the ninja had the techno weapons and they just simply never used them in a practical sense. For example, when Borg got corrupted by the Overlord, and when Wu got corrupted by the Overlord, they never think to actually utilize the Technoblades in a way that actually would have brought them back like they did with Pixel. Why is it that that's not a thought that ever passed their mind? When the ninja are fighting against Wu within Ed and Edna's scrapyard, why is it that Kai is fighting with the Technoblade and not actually utilizing the Technoblade in any sort of significant sense? Of course, haha plot, but it really did just feel like they forgot the entire point of the weapon and realized that a lot of their story fell apart as soon as you considered the weapon in any sort of regard. And that's not even the end of it. You think even further. The ninja took over the Borg vehicles and robots as a means to get their own vehicles. Why is it that they didn't even take it a step further? I talked about how the Nindroids were just items that the ninja could have essentially have taken over and actually had as their own army. But you think about the fact that you also could have taken over the Dragon, you could have taken over the tanks, you could have taken over other mechs and helicopters and jets. They could have had an entire army on their own side with these weapons, but they simply just opted not to. Again, haha story. But the thing is that you realize that these weapons were introduced to basically not be used because it completely compromised the season as a whole. And when you just think about this, you realize that they really just didn't know what to do with these weapons. You realize that they introduced them, not realizing the further implications on what they were actually capable of. And I genuinely do think it's just quite sad. I really do think it's something that they should have done, and definitely something that could have been very handy to do when it did come to Rebooted to improve its overall quality. And honestly, I have some ideas on what they could have done. For one, like I said, have the ninja slowly but surely utilize Nindroids and vehicles and other technology that they corrupted themselves and actually have it serve the plot. Have it be the way they discovered what Arcturus is. Have it be the reason they were able to escape from space. Have it be the reason that they actually knew what was going on with the Overlord's plans. It would have been a fantastic way just to keep the weapons as a relevant aspect of the show. Second up, maybe have it as a way that they could really channel some form of elemental energy through them. Not saying make them elemental weapons like everything else we've seen, but have them have some sort of importance once the ninja actually have their elemental power. Have it so the powers could fuse with the Technoblade's abilities to make stronger vehicles, or have more utility with the vehicles. Have Zane's helicopter be able to shoot ice, or Kai to be able to have flamethrowers. It would be a really cool way to really meld together the concepts they had and make it seem more interesting. And finally, have it so the Technoblades actually felt like weapons. Of course, they're not meant to be weapons inherently, they're by all account keys. But the thing is that you could have had it so these weapons actually felt like they had some form of purpose. The thing about every other ninja weapon is that they actually felt like a weapon that the ninja could use. But in this case, it really did just feel like the few times they utilized them as a weapon, it just really didn't succeed. I think of when Zane tried to use his to stop Crypto but failed, and when Kai was overpowered by Wu with his. It really did feel like they just weren't proper weapons. So make them feel strong, make them feel like they have a purpose, make them feel like something that truly did feel like the ninja had something worth using. Because as it stood, it really did make them feel useless, and on an overall, just made them feel completely wasted. But I do think that is the point of the video. Like I said, when you take a step back and you consider all these things, and consider what they could have done with the weapons, you realize that they really didn't know what to do with this concept. And I honestly think they were afraid to utilize the concept because of the theme of the season. And honestly, it's just a shame to see, because there were many easy fixes that would have made it so much better. But on an overall, I do still really like the Techno Blades. I do still like what they did, it's just I really do wish they actually had something more, and I really want to know what actually happened to them. Like I said, we never had confirmation on what truly did happen to the Techno Blades. Maybe one day we'll have an answer, but it's been so long, 12 years, I'm old, and I just don't think it's something that they would ever go back to, which is unfortunate, but that's still fine. But I would love to know what you guys think. Do you like the Techno Blades or do you not? Do you wish they did more, or do you wish they just did as they were, or do you think they should have ultimately have done less? Would you have rathered Pixel remain evil? Would you have rathered the Nindroids actually have a better counter to them? I would love to know what you think, because I do think it's interesting, and honestly I think there's just a lot of room for discussion on these weapons. But thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member and join the legends that you see on screen. Each of you, your support means the absolute world to me, and I truly cannot thank you enough. But like I said, that's about it for today, and take care. Okay, bye!